If you're introverted like me and thinking of solo traveling, stick around because in this video, I'm going to give you 10 of my top tips from having solo travel to over 20 different countries. The first tip I have is to actually have a plan and know where you're going to go and how you're going to get there before you actually land in the place that you're going to be going to. Having a plan is going to take out 90% of the stress when it comes to traveling. You'll be able to know where you need to go, how you're going to get there, what time you need to be there, and you'll even know what there is to see in the city if you have a plan before you actually arrive there. I know it can be fun to just be spontaneous or just wing it and see where you go when you are solo traveling, but if you're introverted like me, having that sense of security that everything is planned or most of it's been pre-planned, it's going to give you that much more confidence knowing that your trip's going to be more enjoyable and less stressful. Now, that doesn't go to show that if you do have everything pre-planned, that you're not going to have opportunities to be spontaneous. One thing that I always do is try and just book my transport into a city and the first couple nights of accommodation. And that way I can get a good sense of whether I like the place or I don't. And it gives me room to be flexible with my itinerary and book things as I go. That way I'm not locked into my itinerary, but I have that flexibility to move around if I feel like I don't enjoy a city or I want to see some sites without that restriction of having a fully pre-planned itinerary. Now, the second tip I have is to take baby steps when you are thinking of solo traveling. Now, people often have this idea that they're going to travel halfway across the world and just solo travel for the first time without any experience at all. I know this isn't inherently a bad thing. Personally, I've done it for my journey as well. I live in Australia and decided to solo travel to Europe on a whim, but it would have been much more proactive of me if I had taken shorter trips locally. What I mean by that is instead of going to another country, say go to another city or just even go to your own city by yourself. A lot of times when people are traveling, they're either traveling with their family or their friends, and people often don't really have that confidence to solo travel because they think there's a stigma around it. In all honesty, just take those baby steps before embarking on a journey and you're going to actually realize whether it's something you enjoy, and you're not going to have that regret knowing that you've paid all this money for a solo trip and you're going to realize that it wasn't what you expected. So take shorter trips locally and you'll get a sense of whether you actually enjoy solo traveling, and then you can take the next step to embark on a bigger journey. Now, the third tip I have for introverts thinking of solo traveling is to schedule recharge time. When you're solo traveling, and especially if you're going to be staying in hostels or other social accommodation, you're going to have so many opportunities to meet other people that solo traveling actually becomes anything but solo. You're going to be meeting people so often that you're going to be yearning for time to just be by yourself. In that sense, what I like to do is schedule some recharge time. What I mean by that is to just do things by yourself. It could be a solo hobby, could be just going for a walk around the city that you've arrived in. Personally, I'm a big fan of photography, so I like to just go out and explore, take photos, and then when I'm done taking photos, I'd usually go to a nice cafe or a restaurant and just spend an hour or two just editing my photos there. That way my social battery is recharged, and when I do get back to the hostel, I'm that much more energized to meet other people and begin socializing again. Now, the next tip I have, which carries on from my previous point, is to have a solo hobby when you are traveling. Now, I personally am a big fan of photography, so whenever I was traveling, I would make an active effort to just spend a day just wandering around the city with my camera by myself, and I found that was very enjoyable. And since I do prefer my alone time, but I do like socializing as well, I found that having that time to just focus on myself and my solo hobbies made me enjoy my trip that much more. And to just add to that point, there's plenty of different solo hobbies that you can do. There could be reading, journaling, listening to music, even just walking or going on hikes. All of that stuff that can be done solo, I think is very beneficial if you are an introverted traveler to just make an active effort to do. Another hidden benefit I found from doing that hobby when you are solo traveling is that when you pick up that hobby back home, such as reading a certain book or listening to some certain music, you're going to associate your travels with that book or that music or that hobby in general, which I found is a nice thing to sort of reminisce on your travels. So that's another benefit I found of just having a hobby when you are solo traveling, is it's going to make your travels associated with that hobby and you'll enjoy them that much more. Now, the next tip I have when it comes to solo traveling as an introvert is to live like a local as opposed to a tourist when you do arrive in a new place. What I mean by this is that people often have this sort of checklist of things that they want to see when they go to a new place. This can often feel quite overwhelming if you are an introvert like me. What I like to do is a thing that I sort of coined up is called slow travel. Basically, in general, all it means is that you spend longer in each place that you visit. So say you're in a big city, I like to recommend at least 5 days in larger cities to just get to know the place a bit better and explore some of the non-touristy sites as well. A big benefit I found from slow traveling is that not only does it work out much cheaper than jumping from place to place every second day, but you're going to have a much more fulfilling and better experience in the city because you're going to have much more time to sort of see all of the sights, and you won't feel that sense of being rushed or not having enough time to see what you need to see in the limited amount of time that you have. I know a lot of people have this expectation that they must see all of the tourist sites when they go to a new city, but if that's something that doesn't really interest you and you want to do things at your own pace, embrace that wholeheartedly. Don't travel for the sake of other people's satisfaction, because you have to live your life for your own satisfaction, not for the approval of others. And I know that social media and posting on Instagram and all that stuff that comes with travel is soul-sucking and draining at the end of the day if you do partake in it. What I'm trying to say, I guess, is do things at your own pace. Do what you want to do and don't follow the mainstream crowds, and your travels are going to be that much more enjoyable. Now, the next tip I have, which is something that I've talked about quite a bit on this channel, is to stay in hostels when you are solo traveling, especially as an introvert. Now, I know staying in hostels is quite a daunting thing, especially if it's your first time and you're an introvert especially, but in all honesty, everyone there is in the same boat if you think about it. Everyone, or I'd say 90% of the people there are solo travelers, and the benefit of having solo travelers in a hostel is you all have that in common. So an easy way to meet people is to just talk to them about their solo travels, and it's going to be that much easier for you to meet other people because you all have solo travel in common. Another tip I have on the topic of hostels is to stay in the smaller hostels as opposed to the larger hostels, especially if you want to meet people and you do want to sort of try and get out of your comfort zone. I know people might think that a larger hostel has more people, which equates to more opportunities to be social, but personally what I've found and what I've experienced from my past travels is that the larger the hostel is, the higher the chance of there being groups that travel together, staying in those larger hostels. So even if there are more people in the larger hostels, it's going to be much harder for you to sort of socialize and find those solo travelers staying there. So when you are thinking of staying in hostels and you are trying to meet people, stick to the smaller hostels, preferably ones with less than 50 people. You'll be able to run into those same people every now and again, and it's going to be that much more easier for you to meet those people and make friends. Now, the next tip I have, which kind of contradicts my previous tip, is to not have making friends as a criteria for measuring the success of your trip. You got to remember that you're solo traveling with the goal of traveling. Making friends and meeting people is just a byproduct that comes of solo traveling. Whenever I solo travel, and whenever you solo travel as well, travel with the intent of traveling as your first priority and meeting new people and making friends as your second priority. I guess that's the benefit of solo traveling. You can call it a bit selfish in a way, but I guess it's got its pros and cons. When you are solo traveling, you can do what you want to do, and you might make new friends along the way, you might not. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because you're solo traveling with the goal of traveling, and making friends and meeting new people is just a nice part that comes alongside. So don't stress so much when you are solo traveling and you're trying to meet new people. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, still, that's all right. You can't control these things. You can only control where you go. So that's my tip. Don't have making friends as a criteria for measuring the success of your trip. Now, another tip I have, which I did briefly skim over before, is to just stay longer in each place. If you're introverted and you are solo traveling, meeting new people and then saying goodbye and then meeting new people and saying goodbye every few days, it's going to get very exhausting. And what I found that can easily counteract this is to just stay longer in each place. What I personally like to do is in larger cities, I like to stay for at least 5 days. And in smaller cities, at least 3 days I found is a good sort of middle ground to be able to see most of the sites in a city, as well as allow enough time to sort of meet new people and spend a day or two with them, just so you don't feel like you're just rushing through all the people and those connections aren't that valuesome or wholesome in a sense, I guess. So that's my tip. Just embrace a slower method of travel. Just stay longer in each place. Your wallet's going to thank you as well, and you're just going to enjoy that place that much more because you're going to have more time to spend there and you'll be able to see a lot more things and meet more people. Now, my next tip is more of a, I guess, psychological idea, which is that you should realize that your fears in solo traveling, but just in general, are internal, and that most people are just focused on themselves rather than what you're doing. So I know introverts especially, they have this fear that they're being judged or that people are just focused on what they're doing at all times, especially when they're out in public. But this cannot be further from the truth. People are worried about themselves and you're just someone in the background. You're basically an NPC. If you play video games, you're an NPC in their life and you're the main character in your own life. So embrace that fact that no one is really worried what you're doing, and it's going to feel like a weight's lifted off your shoulder when you do get that sort of switch in your brain that people are more focused on themselves rather than other people. And when you realize that, you're just going to feel that you're much more free to do whatever you want and you're not going to be judged by other people. And even if you do get judged, who cares? Like, you're not going to see these people probably ever again. And even if you do see them again, like, who cares? They're probably going to respect you for just doing things at your own pace and not worrying about what other people have to say about you. So that's my tip. Just realize that your fears are internal, and if you want to do something, just do it. And don't worry what other people really think of you, because chances are they're much more focused on themselves than you think they're focused on you. And you're going to feel much more relieved knowing that fact. Now, my final tip is to actually get out of your comfort zone. Now, I know introverts are very reluctant to get out of their comfort zone, but as a fellow introvert myself, I took that leap to get out of my comfort zone by booking a trip solo to Europe. And I can honestly say that some of the best experiences and the best memories I have are from that trip, and that was a byproduct of getting out of my comfort zone. So there's this quote that I like, which goes that fortune favors the brave, and that cannot be more accurate. So if you're just going to be happy living a boring old life and not really getting out of your comfort zone, you're not going to accomplish new things, you're not going to meet new people, you're not going to experience new things, and that's such a sad experience and such a waste of your potential. So get out of your comfort zone, and who knows what might happen. You might make new friends, you might meet new people, and who knows, you might realize that you're not that introverted after all. So that's my final tip. Get out of your comfort zone and you're gonna make some of the greatest memories that you'll ever make in your whole life. So those were 10 of my tips when it comes to solo traveling as an introvert. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a like, share it with a friend, and I'll see you in the next video.